Okay, hello AP Bio students. Again, I'm going to show you Lab 4, which is the Pigment Chromatography lab. First, you have your lovely strip of chromatography paper. Okay, you'll have like a little Ziploc like this with your supplies in there. Good old leaf. And inside your bag you have what's called a Falcon blue top tube, so you're going to be using that. If you needed, here's some forceps, which you probably may or may not need. And then instead of a regular coin, you can use this washer, but if you have a coin, that might even work better, so you might give that a try. Okay, one of the first instructions it says is to put a pencil line about 2 centimeters from the bottom of the chromatography strip. So this is my pencil line about 2 centimeters from the bottom. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the coin to actually crush the plant cells from this leaf onto the actual paper, and what that's going to do is extract the chlorophyll out onto this line. Then we're going to go ahead and put it in the Falcon tube, which will already be added some chromatography solvent. The solvent will dissolve the pigments, and then they will travel up the paper by cohesion. Now, as they do, at certain points, the pigments will become insoluble and they will drop out of solution. And when that's the case, you'll start to see bands of color appear on the chromatography strip. So let's give it a try. First, I'm going to show you how to extract your chlorophyll out onto this 2 centimeter line from the bottom of the chromatography paper. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. I'm going to take my leaf. I'm going to go face down. You want a fresh leaf that's actually been just recently purchased from the store or just from a plant. Do my best to take my coin and place it right over the leaf, right on top of where that line is. I'm going to do a good crush right there. Okay. When I lift up, I've got it's slightly wet, right? It looks a little green, so I'm going to do it again. I want to get all of my lines pretty much on the same pencil line. Looks a little bit more green, so I'm going to try it again. Go back up here. So I had to do it about a half a dozen times, but sometimes you have to do it even more. It took me quite a while to get that much pigment on the chromatography paper. Okay, it's a nice thin line. You don't want a big thick line. You did a thin line, and it's pretty much all on that particular line there, the pencil line that I drew originally. If you don't have a lot of pigment on there, then when you actually go to separate it, your bands will be super light. If you have a big strip of green pigment, then when you go to separate it with a chromatography solvent, you'll get bands dropping out at different thicknesses, and that's because you didn't apply them all on one line. So the best possible way is to go ahead and just put it all on a nice thin line, really heavy set of pigment. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set this up, and then we'll go from there. So you have your Falcon tube. Going to add some chromatography solvent. So this is very fumy. You don't want to put your face over it. So it says to pour about 1 centimeter in the bottom. Centimeter probably matches that bottom ridge right there on the Falcon tube. I'm going to go ahead and pour a little bit in. Okay. I poured a little bit too much. Again, this is very volatile, so you don't want to let it all evaporate. So I'm going to put my cover on it, so with a cover, that way the chromatography solvent will stay in there nice and safe. I'm going to go ahead and trim a little point on this. You don't have to do the point, but since this falcon tube is pointed, it kind of helps to be able to go like this. So when I put this in the tube, then it'll sit on the bottom kind of like that, which is nice, okay? You don't want your chromatography band or your pigment band to be in the actual solvent, because if it is in the solvent, then what will happen is all the pigment will just bleed out into the solvent and you won't get any separation. So this particular band has to be above the level of the chromatography solvent when you put your chromatography strip in. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in. Okay, and it looks like it does. I'm going to go ahead and bend this back the top a little. Okay, and then put the cap on lightly, because I'm just doing this so all the fumes don't go up in my face. And now I can see the actual solvent is starting to rise up the paper. Okay, as it'll rise up at certain points, it'll start to precipitate out the different bands from the actual pigment, and I'll be able to get to see that. Well, you guys will get to see it on your own. I'm not going to wait around for it to be here too long, okay? Basically, keep watching the actual liquid level because it's starting to go up by cohesion, and eventually when it gets almost to the top, then you're going to want to stop it, and at that point you can pull your chromatography strip out. Now if I don't get any bands on my strip, the reason for that might be that the actual amount of chlorophyll that I'm actually looking for is very low in that particular leaf right now, even though I do have the green strip on my actual chromatography paper. But that's okay. It's just kind of hit or miss, and you get to see whether this is whether it contains the chlorophyll A and the chlorophyll B. So I'm going to keep letting it go. When it gets to the top here, then that's when I'll pull my strip out. Then I'll mark the upper level of the solvent front. So I'll show you that next. Okay, just pulled my strip out, and I can tell that my solvent front is just at the top there, barely visible. I want to take a pencil, go ahead and mark that top, and that was the distance that the chromatography solvent actually climbed up. So I want to know how far it climbed because I'm going to take a ratio between where the actual chromatography, where the actual pigment bands are, and how far the solvent strip actually climbed up. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our pigment lines.